Hello and welcome to Circuit Logic. Circuit Logic is a new diagramming tool for visual learners studying for the LSAT. Here's question 1 from section 2 of PrepTest 73. Pause the video and press play when you're ready to continue. The first step to diagramming an argument is to find its conclusion. Here, the conclusion is the last sentence because it starts with the word so, which is a conclusion indicator. Next, we'll split the conclusion into parts. The first part of the conclusion is the subject of the sentence, the city. The second part is the predicate, which begins with the verb, selected. And in this case, the third part is the subordinate clause, about an outrage. Splitting the conclusion into separate concept boxes can help us evaluate the validity of the argument. For the argument to be valid, the premises must support or connect all of these concepts. The third step is to connect the premises to the conclusion. For example, the first sentence of the argument is a premise about the city. We can diagram that premise just below the conclusion. Notice that the two subject boxes match perfectly. This allows us to connect the two boxes with an arrow, signifying a valid logical relationship. Now, let's move on to the predicate boxes. The premise says that the city has chosen the contractor. This supports part of the conclusion about the city selecting the contractor. But this premise doesn't say anything about the contractor's technicians. So we need another premise to continue the logical chain. The second sentence of the argument is about the contractor's technicians. Let's add that to our diagram. But this time, we can't connect the subject box to the circuit because 40% doesn't precisely match the 60% figure in the conclusion. To connect the second premise, we have to paraphrase it. If only 40% of the contractor's technicians are certified, that means that 60% of the contractor's technicians are not certified. Now, the subject of the paraphrase matches the conclusion, so we can connect the box and move on to the predicate. If the argument were valid, we would be able to form a complete circuit by connecting this predicate box to the predicate of the conclusion. But here, we can't connect these two boxes because uncertified doesn't mean unqualified. Therefore, we have an invalid argument. Once you've connected all the premises to the circuit, the final step is to fill the conceptual gaps. In this argument, there's a conceptual gap between these two predicates. We can fill that gap by diagramming an assumption connecting the two concepts. Here, the first assumption connects uncertified technicians to unqualified technicians. But even with that assumption, we still need to connect the last part of the conclusion, the subordinate clause. That gap can be filled with a second assumption connecting the contractor's 60% of unqualified technicians to an outrage. Now that we have a complete circuit connecting all the concepts in the conclusion, our diagram is finished. The question asks for an assumption required by the argument, so we're looking for an answer that matches either of the two assumptions identified in the circuit. Answer A refers to uncertified technicians, but this answer does not connect their lack of certification to being unqualified. Therefore, answer A is wrong. Answer B, which mentions certified technicians, could be paraphrased from the perspective of uncertified technicians. However, this answer is still wrong because it doesn't connect certification to the technician's qualification. Answer C matches the first assumption perfectly. Therefore, answer C is correct. Answer D, which mentions qualified technicians, could be paraphrased from the perspective of unqualified technicians. But answer D is wrong because it doesn't relate the technician's qualification to their certification. Finally, answer E is about the contractor's personal ties to city officials, which you might think is an outrage. However, the logic of the argument was about the contractor's percentage of unqualified technicians, not the contractor's personal ties to city officials. Therefore, answer E is not an assumption required by the argument. This has been a demonstration of circuit logic. Please click the like button and subscribe for more videos.